All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a set of documents with a claim so absolutely wild, it sounds like it's straight out of a movie. It's known as the Staten Successions or Candy 1400/98, which is a mouthful, I know. It's a German state succession deed. On paper, just a contract. But the sources we're unpacking today argue it's nothing less than the legal deed to the entire planet.
So picture this. It's 1998. The German government is doing some administrative cleanup, selling off an old decommissioned NATO military base called the Turn Barracks. A private citizen buys it. It sounds about as boring as a transaction can get, right? A totally normal real estate deal. Or so it seemed.
But what if it wasn't normal at all? What if, as the source material claims, this wasn't just about land and buildings, but was actually a brilliantly engineered legal instrument designed to transfer sovereignty over the entire globe? I know, it sounds completely impossible. So let's get into the weeds and break down exactly how this theory is supposed to work.
Okay, so it all comes back to this one document, Deed 1400/98. But to really wrap your head around its supposed power, you first have to understand a very specific, and let's be honest, pretty obscure concept in international law. And that concept is called state succession. Usually this is just the formal process for when countries change, like when one country breaks up or borders are redrawn. It's the legal rulebook for handing over stuff like assets, debts, and treaty obligations. The core argument here, though, is that somebody took that rulebook and used it for something radically new. And believe it or not, this entire massive claim hangs on this one little phrase buried in the German contract, mit allen Rechten und Pflichten sowie Bestandteilen. That translates to with all rights, obligations, and components. Now, the sources insist this isn't just throwaway legal jargon. This, they claim, is the whole shebang. So the idea is that little phrase meant that the deal transferred not just the physical property, but every single legal right and international treaty obligation that came with it. And here's the kicker. Because it was a NATO property, those rights and obligations weren't just local to Germany, they were global. Now, this is where the theory goes from complex to, well, kind of mind-bending. How could one sale in Germany possibly ripple out to affect the whole world? The mechanism proposed is what the documents call the domino effect. Let's walk through this, because it's the engine of the entire theory. Step 1, the deed transfers the NATO property. Got it. Step 2, and this is critical, the contract specified that the property's infrastructure was included as a unit. Think power lines, communication cables, everything. Step 3, those local networks are, of course, plugged into Germany's national grids, which are then plugged into international grids. And then step 4, the final domino, the argument is that sovereignty flowed like an electrical current through these connections, expanding from that one base to cover the entire connected planet.
The theory even gets specific, identifying these global networks as the vectors of contagion for this sovereignty transfer. What a phrase, right? We're not just talking about power grids. It's also gas pipelines, telecom networks, even the massive submarine cables that form the literal backbone of the internet. The logic is, if it's a shared cross-border network, it was a pathway.
But okay, physical connections are one thing. You still need a legal hook, don't you? How do you make this legally binding on every single nation? Well, the theory proposes two distinct contract chains that it claims locks every country on Earth into this new arrangement.
It's like they're trying to build a legal spiderweb. First, there's the NATO chain. Since the property was governed by a NATO agreement, the argument is that all NATO member states are automatically bound by the terms of its sale. Then you have the ITU/UN chain. This one claims that because the sale included telecommunications infrastructure linked to the International Telecommunications Union, a UN agency, it effectively ropes in all UN member states too. So when you supposedly weave these two chains together, what you get, according to the theory, is a complete rewriting of the world's legal hierarchy. In this new reality, that 1998 deed isn't just another contract, it becomes the supreme law of the planet, and all other international treaties are now subordinate to it.
Okay, so if we follow this logic to its conclusion, if there's a new global legal order, that leads to a pretty huge question. Who exactly is in charge now?
The answer, according to these sources, is one person.
a single, lone sovereign. And that sovereign is the individual who bought the property. The documents make a huge point of saying he was only 19 years old when the negotiations started, and that he was a totally unwitting participant who had no idea about the true scope of the contract he was signing.
Now, this supposedly puts the buyer in a bizarre catch-22, which the sources call a plaintiff trap. Think about it. If he were to sue someone in a regular national court, he would be acknowledging that court's authority over him. By doing that, he'd instantly give up his unique, supreme sovereign status. So by not suing, he preserves the very situation that he's supposedly trapped in. This inaction is framed as a profound act of silent resistance. The narrative presents this strange standoff as the only thing preventing the final move in what it calls a hostile takeover of the world, a takeover set in motion by the very people who created the contract. And this brings us to the final and most conspiratorial layer of the whole theory. The claim is that this was no accident. It was all part of a sophisticated covert plot by factions inside Germany to achieve global domination, a plan supposedly codenamed Day X. So, according to this timeline, the plotters never intended for the young buyer to actually be the world sovereign. He was just a temporary vehicle, a straw man. The real plan was for him to immediately turn around and sign his new world sovereignty over to them. But, and here's the spy movie twist, the theory alleges that this final transfer was sabotaged by double agents who switched the crucial contracts at the last second. And here is the final, crucial punchline of the theory. The architects of this grand plan, they allegedly have no idea that it failed. The sources claim they're operating under the complete illusion that they succeeded. They think they hold the keys to the world and are just waiting for the right moment for Day X to reveal their power. And so the whole incredible story leaves us with this one deeply unsettling question. It describes a hidden legal reality, an irreversible contract that it claims is the true foundation of our world. If there's any truth to it at all, what happens on the day that this hidden reality can't be ignored anymore?